All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Every Other Sunday Rooftops of America live stream. I hope you all can hear me loud and clear. Thanks for being here tonight. And let's dive right in. So, my big news is let's see if you can see it. Is yesterday I passed my Part 107 remote pilot certification. So that is my big news. I can now officially use my drone footage for my YouTube channel. Um, I should clarify that statement a little bit because my YouTube channel is monetized. I am no longer considered a recreational pilot. I'm considered a commercial remote pilot. So I had to go get this cert and to keep myself out of trouble with the FAA. And honestly, the test was interesting. I got an 85%, which I'll take it. I think I could have did better, but I didn't start studying until Thursday. So I studied. I had scheduled it a couple weeks ago, but with everything else going on, I studied hard for Thursday and Friday and took the test on Saturday. It was a proctored exam. You go in to wherever the testing facility is, and you know you got 2 hours to complete it. 60 questions. They give you the supplement. They give you a couple pieces of scratch paper, marker, transparency, like you used to for us older folks, the kind you'd use on like an overhead projector, dry erase marker, and that if you need it. I didn't actually need any of the scratch paper or the transparency or the marker, any of the writing utensils. Um, I did request a magnifying glass because looking at the sectional maps in the supplement, I'm telling you, that's a pro move right there because those things are so busy, and being able to actually get in tight and close helped a lot. I think I'm going to talk a little bit about the exam in case there's other folks here that want to go down that road. It was um, definitely not the hardest test I've ever taken. It's not even the hardest aviation test I've taken. That still is the Navy's aviation aptitude battery test is still the hardest aviation test I ever took. But this one was, normally like when I'm pretty good at multiple choice tests. It's a weird little superpower of mine. And most of the time when I take them, I know how I did. Like I can finish it and be like, I did well on this, or I didn't. This one I couldn't get a read on. Uh, I honestly, when I was waiting for my results, I was, I'm like, it could have went great or it could have went bad. I just didn't know. Um, it definitely was. There was. I'd recommend at least a week studying for it for folks that might decide to do it in the future instead of trying to cram it in 2 days. Things that I really found that you really need a lot of, learn those sectional maps inside and out. Um, learn your airspace. God, knowing all the airspace types and the ins and outs of them and how they relate to the sectional maps. Um, that was key. Areas that I glossed over that turned to bite me in the butt was almost fundamentals of fixed wing flight, which is weird because it's a remote pilot cert focused on normally drones, but they really want you to understand just aviation concepts in general on some of this. And the noodle is here, by the way, so he's joining us tonight. Um, and I glossed over that, thinking I had a fairly decent um, understanding of that, but I could have used a refresher. Lot on regulations, particularly the new regulations on remote ID that's coming out, and operations over people, night operations, um, some interesting stuff on MOAs, and operating, you know, a lot of stuff on, who catches the sticky wicket. I mean, you could almost answer every one of those. Remote pilot and command. That that was that was a frequent question too. So, um, if you are flying the drone and you're using that footage, um, spend the money, get the peace of mind, have the remote pilot cert. I think it's going to make production. It'll make it a little bit better. It definitely makes me feel like a little more secure, that I don't have to worry about getting getting busted, uh, which is a weird thing in the first place. So, but that was my big win over the this weekend, was getting that test taken care of and passing it. So, let's see who's all here tonight. Pretzel too. Hey, thanks. I appreciate it. Traveling around, man. Nice to see you. Eric, hi. Hope you're doing well. What is coming up this week? Coming up is a big week. I will be flying out super early on Wednesday morning to go to Utah to finish filming all of the footage we never got for Kings Peak. All the none of the hiking footage. We captured all that, but the background stuff that we needed. Um, we never finished that. So I'm going to finish that on this Wednesday. Then I'm driving south to Flagstaff from SLC. So with a stop probably at Navajo Point on the south rim of the Grand Canyon. I have hiked up Kings Peak. I did that August of 2022. Tough hike. It was a rough 3 days. Though, honestly, the only reason it was rough on that third day is because it rained nonstop while we hiked out, and that sucked. The hike out from Dollar back to the trailhead, nonstop rain. Sometimes it was just coming down hard. Hey, Bill, thanks for being here. So yeah, I have hiked Kings, but the episode has been on the shelf because I got it in my head that I didn't want to finish filming all that background stuff at my kitchen table. I didn't think that would look interesting. Pretty sure I could have got away with it, but this is an opportunity to get footage in Utah, put that episode finally to bed, um, get it out to the public, and we're going to redo Humphreys. So go to Flagstaff, refilm that, rehike Humphreys. We're planning on going up on Friday, and the filming from basically Thursday and Saturday, hiking on Friday. Saturday being our backup hike day if we need it, and then flying back out early Sunday morning. I had endless sprinkles. I did Oklahoma and Kansas. Yeah, the Oklahoma high point is still one of these ridiculous experiences. And if you go back, we didn't know what we were doing when we filmed Oklahoma. And you can hear the rain because we were using a shotgun mic setup. And I think I've told this before, but we started the hike and we raced all the way out there. God, we got to the high point really quick, and it didn't really rain at all that whole hike out there. And then we're like, this is great. It's holding off. It's holding off, holding off. We get the standard, and here we are at the highest point in the Sooner State, blah, blah, blah. And as soon as we bagged that, we were going to start doing all the rest of the filming on the way back, that movie magic thing. And it rained, and it rained, and it rained until we actually were wrapping up. And there was like one or two scenes, and that's when the sun finally came out, and we were just soaked and miserable. And someday I will go back and refilm Black Mesa because it's a beautiful area. I love Black Mesa. I thought it was a really cool high point. You're really out in the, I mean, it feels so old west. Like you can just envision, driving cattle over those mesas. Um, so, but yeah, that was my Black Mesa experience. It made me laugh that the driest place in Oklahoma what got the deluge that day. So the tasty beverage of choice tonight is another one from New Hampshire, Moat Mountains Czech Pilsner. Um, this was I picked this up at Vista Bev, which is right down the road from where Moat Mountains brewery is. All right. Let's see what else. Endless sprinkles on do. Yep. Perfect fall. Hey, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for your video. My brother and I were able to do Spruce Knob, Hoycrest, Mount Davis in the same day. Man, that is a fun run. Those three are a great trifecta. I love Spruce Knob. I'm looking forward to going back again in the near future. Hoycrest, I think others will agree with me. Hoycrest is one of these ones that is really easy to underestimate. It can be a little harder than you think it's going to be. And then, of course, Mount Davis. You know, my advice to folks on Mount Davis is watch your step on that observation tower because when it's wet or icy, holy cow, that thing is slick. Well, welcome aboard. I'm glad you're really enjoying the episodes. I always always welcome aboard. So, in hindsight, I should have parked on the main gravel road and walked in. Okay. Black Mesa is gorgeous. Did it winter once? Probably. It would be cool to actually do Black Mesa in the winter. If I have a feeling like I sort of when I went, it was in May, and it was so green, like weirdly green, greener than you would have ever expected a place like that to be. And I felt that that was sort of this sort of anomaly. Um, so I sort of want to go back and get the traditional full-on Black Mesa experience. How many high points outright require specialized equipment beyond just trekking poles? I would think mostly the big five. Probably need it for the big five. Or if you're going to, depends when you're going to tackle them. Like if you're going to hike Mansfield, say you were going to go up Profanity Trail or something like that in the winter. When we attempted to do that in 2017, do a winter, we actually had crampons. We were actually using crampons to go up some of that ice trail because it was incredibly slick and incredibly icy. Hey, David, I'm glad you're here. But anything that you're going to do a glacier travel on, or if you got rock tumble coming down, I you might want to consider wearing a helmet. We're going back and forth on Borov. I think I might actually take a helmet with me for Bora next year, because there are certain parts where I think it would be definitely a thing of value to have. Terrible ideas. Welcome. Thank you for being here. What state high points would you consider having a guide with you for the ascent besides Denali and Rainier? Maybe we're going to use a guide for Hood. We're probably going to use a guide for Gannett as well. We might not for Granite though, if we go up the southern ramp, up the ramp. So if we went the other way, then we probably would. Any of the ones, I mean, because I'm looking at it as an investment to the way the calculus I make in my head for it is I want to maximize the potential of gaining the summit and also being able to maximize the chance of getting quality footage. And I think a guide helps answer both of those. Um, Not a group, but a private. Like if we're going to do a guide on Hood, we're going to have a private guide because we're trying to actually produce something. And if we're in a group, there's going to be, that's not the top priority for the group. The top priority for the group is getting the group to the top. Whereas, so I don't want to necessarily put ourselves in those competing positions. Um, let's see. At the convention, someone mentioned a route up either Gannett or Granite. That was a straight up class. I think it's Granite because I don't think Gannett's a tough nut to crack. Um, Gannett's actually the one peak I spend. I shouldn't say that. Alaska's so far out of like the realm of normal that I don't spend a lot of time thinking about Alaska, but I do spend more time thinking about Gannett and that coming up than pretty much any of the other peaks. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I have spent a lot of time, and I'm looking at Gannett 2 years from now. So I'm not necessarily, but I do this. It's one of these peaks that every so often I just think about it through, like, how would we go about doing this? How are we going to do this multiple day long trek, long, this long filming thing, and, take the summit, do glacier, the whole works, glacier travel, and get up a pretty fairly technical peak and still film it. Like for me, that's the riddle is how can we get to the summit and film it and make it look good? You hiked Kings Peak with your own group without a guide? Yes. Yes, we did. Hood can be day hiked. But yeah, so Kings Peak, we planned 3 days, and Kings and other folks here, like Eric on this chat stream, Eric Kelly, he did Kings in a day because he's a beast and just kicked in beast mode. But Kings is pretty straightforward. It's just long. It's super long. But it's not, and it's also fairly heavily trafficked. Like if you're going to do Kings in, say, July, August, you are not going to be alone out there. So, but for us, it was 2 nights at Dollar Lake. So the first day we hiked in at Dollar, camped, got up super early, summited day 2, camped again, and then hiked out on day 3. And it was a rough go. So for us, we had the thing that really brought it down was trying to juggle production and the hike. If we'd have just been focused on the one. And so for Kings, for us, while we had a successful summit, we didn't have a successful production. Hence the reason I'm going back on Wednesday to finish the rest of that production. So for us, it was a huge learning experience. And those lessons will transfer over to Granite and Gannett and Rainier. And Hood, like everything we learned at Kings was a valuable learning experience. So, and of course, Eric completely, and you know what? Eric's got a good point. When he was out there, he was as the only summit attempt that day. So it could be that way as well. So, your Kings Peak experience will vary. Let's put it that way. Ohio Alphorn, hey, glad you're here. It's good to see you again. Where would you recommend staying overnight near Black Mesa? We we actually So my Black Mesa experience, I was actually in a leadership facilitation course in Denver. And so I was going to school for 4-day training cycle, did that course. And then the day the course is over, my friend Kraus, Eric Krause, who will going up, he's gone up a couple peaks with me, but him and uh, Brett had flown out there. Eric lives out there. And we drove to La Junta, where we stayed at a COA because basically we left Denver at like 6 at night, stayed at that COA in La Junta, got up super early, drove to Black Mesa, and then hiked it into that. Um, if I had more time, Boise City maybe might be worth if you're coming from the east. I'd have to look at a map um, for a better recommendation. So there's nothing immediately close. You could camp at Black Mesa State Park, but that's still, I think it's 15 miles away as the crow flies, but it's a little bit longer. So if you're willing to camp, Black Mesa State Park, because Black Mesa Nature Preserve is not the same as Black Mesa. They're separated. Um, Kings Peak is a class 1 hike. I'd have to look it up. I don't remember. I do remember once you get up by Anderson Pass and you start and you hike up the little bit before you turn to the left and start hiking up Kings Peak itself, there is some hand holding stuff there that you're gonna have to negotiate, but nothing crazy. If you've done Boundary, you can do Kings. Yeah, you're probably right. It's class 1. Um, so my friend Jay Williams, who's done Kings Peak a couple times, just called it. He calls it a slag heap. that's his description for Kings Peak. He's like, it's one of his least enjoyable Utah mountain hikes because it's just, as he said, it's a slag heap. So no, we're going to, like I said, Arizona, Salt Lake City, drive down, hopefully get some good footage at the Grand Canyon at Navajo Point, which is the highest point apparently on the South Rim. And then on that Thursday, shoot around Flagstaff and explore some of the area, explore some of the national monuments out there. It's my whole point with redoing Arizona is I felt I left so much good stuff. We never covered it, and I really want to cover it because, man, that place is just loaded. And there's a little bias here too. I love Flagstaff. I think it's a wonderful place. It's on the list of places I would move if I got the chance. So, yeah, I'm excited. I think this will be, it's weird. I know a lot of high pointers, they want to do that list, they want to get that 50, but I actually find a decent amount of enjoyment going back. I like to go back to high points. So I'm looking forward to going back to Arizona. I'm especially looking forward to going back to Arizona because Arizona was the first quote unquote big peak we ever did. And now that we've done stuff like Boundary and we did Kings, and I want to see, I remember what it felt like going up Humphreys that first time, and I want to see how it compares now, like how my perception of this mountain has changed. I still expect it to be a decent, tough day, but not as tough as I thought it was in 2016. So we will see. Pretzel 2. Next year, I'm planning on bagging several high points in order: New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Mass, Rhode Island, and Con. Great list. New York is on my list for next year as well. The one that I look at when I look at that list, the one that for me that was not a bad day, but a lot harder than I ever thought it was going to be was Connecticut. I seriously underestimated that peak. That well, not even the south slope, that side of the mountain. Um, but and I think you've probably heard other people say that as well. Um, my plans once I finish Arizona, my plan for the next month and a half is to start finally editing all this footage I've shot since July and getting stuff out the door. Um, when I did Conhead at that point, it was raining horribly, and man, what a day! Yeah, it wasn't. It threatened rain for me, but it held off. But it was humid and buggy. Man, it was buggy. Um, and it's not a long hike, but it's an aggressive hike for what it was. Yeah, parking at Friesel was limited, but there was no one there. When I got there, there was one other car because I got there early. There was one other car in the lot, or not even. It's not a lot. It's like you're pulling off the side of the road. And by the time I was finished and left, there was people parking down the road, stuff like that. It was crazy. It was wild. Um, my plans for high points for the remaining bit of the year is the tail end of October. I'm going to pick up in Refilm, Ohio. I have to go back to Wisconsin one more time this year for one of my dear friends' weddings, and yeah, so I will refilm Campbell Hill. I've been working. That script is actually further along because I had this intent of actually doing it in August, but it didn't happen. Um, so October it will, and then it's a good question if they can. To answer your question, Pretzel, um, it would be nice, but I don't know if they're going to be able to. Um, Partially because of who owns the land. Um, and you're right on that border with Massachusetts and Connecticut. So it'll be an interesting conundrum. We'll see how it plays out. Um, so Ohio, Campbell Hill, tail end of October for my third visit. I think it's my third visit. Yeah, my third visit. And then I'm probably not going to, well, I rephrase that. I might go back to Alabama over Christmas break, refilm Chia Mountain, and get that one redone. It's either that or go over to Missouri. So, um, have you heard about the stuff happening with the Hawaii High Point? Which part? So, there's been stuff with the Hawaii High Point for years. Um, I might need a little of a specific on that because I do know um, the native Hawaiians um, have very strong views into Mauna Kea um, for a variety of reasons, cultural reasons, religious reasons. Um, it is a significant mountain in their culture. Um, so there is a lot of tension there between the astronomy community, Native Hawaiians, University of Hawaii, the National Park Service. If I was the public affairs officer over there, it would be a tightrope all the time. About the sign that says, please not go to the summit. The sign's been there for a while. I've gone back and forth um, on how I'm going to approach Hawaii, and I still don't have a definitive answer yet. I do know people hike to the summit, so um, I don't have a I don't know one way or the other on what my plan is yet. Um, that's a tough question, and I don't have a good answer yet. I want to get more informed before I make that decision. The club has made the decision, let sign be counted as acquiring the high point. So that's actually a good piece of knowledge to know. I didn't actually know that bit. I do know that if you're on the 50 state high pointing group, and if you want to kick up an interesting conversation, that's always one of these ones that can always get um, you can always get a good conversation going about. Um, so, I mean, you can make it. It's a tough question. So that was a board decision. Okay, so brand new. Thank you very much for that. That is a good update. Um, Bill says there's more than one way to Frizzle, or more one way to Frizzle. Yeah, on the Kitimat border, you drive up dirt road. At least, yeah, yeah, and you can also get there from the New York side. You can put together. Somebody once told me you can put together a really nice 3 or 4 summit day um, for on that trail. So if you're down for it, um, what else is coming up? Yeah, so more getting content out the door. Now that we've shot it all, and I'll have a couple weeks, I'm really hoping to. The first thing I'd like to get out in the immediate is that video essay on 10 years of high pointing. Eric had recommended a video essay a while back. I'm trying to get one out, Eric Kelly, and so I'm working on it. Um, it's like part of me is like it doesn't the gas pedal's not laying off because I know this isn't it's fun. I get back from Arizona on Sunday and literally the next day I go into to training for work for the week, which tends to throw a wrench into things too. So while you try to do training and still, do your job. Um, so um, let's see. Other big ticket items on the list. If anybody has been to Flagstaff recently, I haven't been there in about 7 years. If there's any breweries or food places that you'd recommend, let me know. We're staying in an Airbnb right in downtown Flag. So if anybody's got any recommendations, toss them in the chat. No one has really done low points. You'd be surprised. There is a small little community out there that has done some of the low points. I've done a couple low points. Um, nice, Bill. Nice. That's the kind of humor we want in this thread. When I did con, I went over Bear Mountain, Round Mountain, Mount Friesel, and Brace Mountain. Yep. Yeah, that's the one. I think Ron, you were the one that actually brought that up. So thanks for the reminder right there. Yeah, that's a good day. That's a good day of hiking. You hit a new low when you're doing low points. So I plan on only filming one low point. And that's the Death Valley, Badwater Basin, Death Valley. So thanks, Eric. I've if you go do Um, for those of you that get up to Eagle Mountain, Minnesota, when you go do that high point, make sure to then stop at the shore of Lake Superior um, at some point as you're driving back down towards Duluth, and then you'll have picked up the Minnesota low point as well. So the other low point I've thought about doing that would be worth probably doing is the Colorado one, the highest of the low points. And it's like significantly high. Like it's higher than, what is it? It's 3,000 some feet. So it's actually substantially higher than a good deal of I want to say like 16 states or something. I know I had it written down somewhere. So, flew from Connecticut to Flagstaff 20 years ago for a wedding long before I was high pointing. Missed the opportunity. I kicked myself over. But what do you know, right? I mean, I I've thought about that too. Like back in my more vagabond days, how many um, like I tell folks that high pointing, like especially the Western Peaks, that's a young man's game. Um, the high point of Colorado, yeah, yep, 100 feet lower, and it's way out in the northeastern part. It's by a river, and I can't think of the name of it. If John Mitchler was here, he could tell us right off the top of his head. I think he's been one of the people that have been out there. Um, for me, low points are fun. I like tri points too, but none of them are quite as alluring as the high point or high points in general. Like, so I know people have asked before what happens if I ever finish this series, fingers crossed, what's next? And I don't know. Um, I don't know what round two would be. I don't know if I'd necessarily film round two as like comprehensive things. I have not been to the Four Corners. So it could be. I'd have to look it up. I swear that river started with an A. Um, but I'd have to go back and check my notes. I have it written down somewhere. I think I actually talked about it in the Colorado episode because it's such a funny little thing. Like Colorado is, so high up. Um, yeah. Um, so how have you guys been? Any big? Yeah, there it is. The Arakari or Eric. Uh, I'm not gonna mispronounce it again. um, so, any adventures lately that you've had out there? Anything of any repeat visits? Any new stuff? Tri points. How about the PA Dello? So that is one of my favorite ones. If people want to do, I finished new. Nice job. Congratulations. That is ambitious. That's awesome. The Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland Tri Point. There is a story around that. Um, it is also that's the hike I recommend. Like when people do the Delaware High Point, because it's because you could argue that it's a letdown, but I recommend they go to the Mason Dixon Tri Point. So that Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland Tri Point. That is a fun little hike. It takes you out in a nice little was it White Creek, White Clay? I'd have to look it up again. Um, so what low points have you done? Minnesota, most of the beaches on the Atlantic seaboard. Um, the Wisconsin low point. Um, Iowa. Most of most of the ones in the Midwest, I haven't made an active effort to get to the lowest points in the interior. So 48 4K footers of New Hampshire. And like I said, the big one for me is going to be Badwater Basin out in Death Valley, which bookends really nicely with Mount Whitney. So 48 4K footers, New Hampshire. If I've done any low points, it would be pretty much by accident because going to the beaches. Yeah, raise my hand on that one too. So I'm trying to think. I think there's only 2 states, California, of course, where it's negative elevation. And I want to say Louisiana. But I don't know if the lowest point of Louisiana is because it's man-made because of the seawalls and stuff. So that would be worth some research to figure out. And that note, we're getting to time. It's 9:11. So any other last questions, comments, any advice for good stuff out in Flagstaff? Glad to take it. Do you have your remaining state high points mapped out in a rough timeline? Yeah, I do. So Eric, by the way, a follow-on question that you'd asked earlier. We're looking, I think I mentioned we're looking at the latter half of May. So from the middle of May before Memorial Day weekend is when we're looking at Hood. So next year is Hood, New York, Maine, Bora, and hopefully Whitney if we can get the lottery. So those 5. And then the following year, Hawaii, Granite, Rainier's up in the air. And then, who am I forgetting? I'm not counting the territories in because those 3 territories are such a, you'll know I'll be talking about those for about 6 months straight once we commit to that. So the following year, got those. Yeah, I guess I'm running out of them, aren't I? Shit. Yeah, so Gannett and Denali are probably going to be the following after that. So, it's coming down. Like we're now in the final bit. I really need to actually sort of sketch them out. Like it's Eric, that's a good question. That's a good reminder for me to actually look from a production standpoint when we can do this and really start to focus on that. So good question. Have you considered hiking California on 1 November so you don't have to worry about the lottery? Yes, we waived off this year and we're going to waive off next year, but the following, we're going to probably do something like that just because we're going to put ourselves in a bind if we don't. Not counting the big 5, how many high points are multi-day hikes typically? Kings. I think that might be the only one. Though you could make a multi-day hike out of Virginia if you wanted to, because it's beautiful out there. And you're on the AT, and there's plenty of places to camp. I tried for Whitney. Went to. I suppose you could do a multi-day hike on Whitney too. depending on the route. Um, so there was another question in there. Since we're close on time, when did you start this high points? 2016. April 2016, I put pen to paper and I filmed the first thing ever, Arkansas Magazine Mountain, in May of 2016. And I've mentioned it before and I'll say it again. That is the skeleton's there at least, but man, we've come a long way. So, yeah, I've only done 3 county high points in my state, no state high points yet. The world's your oyster, man. Once you start going down the state high point road, there's no looking back. It's a lot of fun. So try for anyone to work with because hurricanes for 2 days before. Oh man, that's rough. I feel for you. Terrible ideas. That's rough. Are there any day hike routes for Whitney you don't need a permit for? Um, Good question. I can't answer that. I'd need to do some research. If Brett was here, I bet you he'd have an answer for you. I'll leave it to the group. Yeah, County High Points Ultra Star. I've talked about them a little bit before. They're the wild frontier. Um, there's the County High Point website out there. I think it's COHP or whatever. And there's a lot of good information on there, but it's it is a wild world for county high points. A lot of them are privately owned. A lot of them don't like strangers coming around. Um, the only time I've ever had a loaded gun pointed at me, um, well, let's rephrase that. Uh, like directly face to face was because of a county high point. So, like I said, not quite my thing. But there are people here that are really dedicated into that world, and more power to them. But there is a ton of good trip reports on the County High Point website, and that's where you're going to find some of the folks that are really into it. And talking to them can be super helpful, super helpful. And on that, it is 9:18, so I'm going to sign off. Um, I really want to say thanks to everybody for being here. I appreciate it. And I will see you guys. Actually, happy Labor Day tomorrow. If you guys got it off, that's great. If you don't, well, I'll think of you while I'm barbecuing my chicken. And I appreciate the good luck on Humphreys. And I will talk to you all soon. Good night, all. Cheers.